Hello and welcome to episode 246 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the band from Oakland, California, the incredible garage punk band Grumpster. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Donnie, Noel and Lalo from the band, and all three of them are superb. And that interview's coming up in just a couple of minutes time, and I can tell you now, they're one of my favourite, most listened to bands last year, and honestly, I just can't wait to share it with you. But before we get there, let's touch base and talk about my last episode. I was joined by the actor Patrick Bergen. What an amazing guy, what an amazing chat, so many deep and amazing stories. And the response, as always, was just incredible. So thank you for everyone that tuned in. The numbers was just as high, and I couldn't be more grateful for everyone that's taken the time to listen. But today, it's all about the band Grumpster. Maybe you're discovering this band for the first time via this podcast, or you're already a fan, but I can't recommend them enough. And their brand new album has just come out at the end of last year. It's absolutely awesome, and I urge you all to go and check it out. The album's called Fever Dream and is out now, and honestly, please let me know once you've listened to it and what you think. But I think the best thing to do right now is to get to the interview. So here's me and Grumpster talking all things music. So Grumpster, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
What I want to do today for anyone that's discovering your band for the first ever time is give them an idea about basically all of you growing up and what shaped the music that you listen to today. So Donnie, tell me, when you were growing up, what was one of those first records that you remember listening to? Maybe you used your pocket money or you bought that you fell in love with that made you probably want to pick up a guitar and start singing.
Well, so the record that got me into liking like rock music as a whole was the Queen's Greatest Hits CD.
Amazing.
And so that kind of got me hooked, but it wasn't until I discovered Green Day that I was like, I need a guitar immediately and I need to learn how to play every single song. So I would say I probably have two.
I was the same with Dookie. I remember picking up that album on CD, and literally when I heard When I Come Around and Basket Case and I was just like, oh my God, like all I ever want to do now is be like Billy Joe Armstrong and just rock out and play guitar.
Exactly.
And what about you, Noel?
I grew up in a family of musicians, so there was always like a lot of classic rock and stuff around, and I played that from a young age with my dad. But the first album that really introduced me to like punk and pop punk was probably Newfound Glory's self-titled record.
An absolute classic.
Yeah. It's also around the time I like started skating and stuff, so it kind of all happened all at once with that record, and dove into all the other subgenres and stuff like that from there.
And Lalo, what about yourself?
Yeah, growing up, my mom would play a lot of like blues around the house, so a lot of like Freddie King and Stevie Ray Vaughan, stuff like that. And as I got into like middle school, I had like a really big Metallica phase, because they were local, and like almost every day going to like El Cerrito Plaza, I would see like the little house they used to live in, and my mom would always tell me that story. So like I got pretty heavy into them, and then only really, kind of the same as Donnie, like hearing Dookie all the way through was when I was like, oh, I need to learn how to play all these songs. Mm-hmm. And that was the motivator to pick up a guitar that I had that I never learned how to play and just start learning like front to back that album.
And one thing I find fascinating is when you go to one of your first gigs, because you can have all these amazing albums on tape or CD, but it's only when you really go and see that first show that you really appreciate how powerful music can be. Can you all remember your first ever experience, or who it was you first saw live that was like, oh my God, like my ribs are shaking, my hairs on my neck are sticking up, like this is what I want to do?
It's funny, mine was Green Day. That was my very first show.
I'm so jealous. Wow.
I like got into them, and then it was like a Friday night. I learned that they were playing my state on Monday. So I bought tickets. I was so hyped, and we got there, and I just remember like getting down to our seat, seeing the stage, and I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And there were like 3 bands playing before them, but I stayed in my seat the entire time, could not lose the seat. And yeah, just like after seeing that and, the energy of their live show, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely need to do that.
I love it. I love how much Green Day's already been mentioned on this interview. We're like 3 or 4 minutes in and it's become Green Day cast, but it's hard to ignore a band that have been going so long and so influential. So was it a different band for you, Noel?
It was actually my first concert ever was Vans Warped Tour in I think 2000. And I went the next year also in 2004. So they kind of meld together for me. Like I'm fuzzy on which bands I saw which year, but it was definitely like golden era. I saw MCR at Warped Tour, Paramore, Fall Out Boy, like basically any of those big bands from that Warped Tour era. And crowd surf for the first time, like saw a bunch of people that were in the same type of music as me for the first time. So it was definitely those two Warped Tours kind of really, really solidified like, oh, this is what I like and what I'm into and what I want to be a part of moving forward for the rest of my life.
That's some incredible bands like My Chemical Romance and Paramore. The fact they're still going now and they're getting stronger. I recently saw My Chemical Romance after their reunion show, and the energy they've got is like they've never been away. So that's some incredible foundations to build on.
Wow, that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, for me, it'll be kind of similar to Donnie. So, well, I mean, the first concert I went to, I think, was Jamiroquai. It was like a free show in the city. And then I saw NSYNC when I was like 7 or something like that, which was cool. But those didn't really leave like a mark on me. It was really when I saw Green Day in Berkeley. And, I was going to like community college at the time, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to. I had an idea, but I wasn't sure. And I saw that show, and originally I was sitting up, like it's all a general admission, but there's like seats, and I was sitting up in the seats. And I told my dad, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go like get a closer look and I'll be right back. But I ended up staying down in the pit for the whole entire show. And it was after that I just like dropped out of school and started learning how to play guitar, because I was like, this is way cooler than what I'm doing right now. And yeah.
And were you guys all in bands growing up at school and stuff, separate bands, like doing the whole Battle of the Bands thing and doing like covers and stuff? Or has it come later on in life for you? Or how was it that you all started? So Donnie, have you been in bands previously?
So I've been like playing music since I was really young, maybe like 5 or 6 is when I like picked up playing the trumpet. And so I did like, wind instruments like trumpet and saxophone and like percussion ensemble and kind of like, high school, middle school, elementary school band things. So I've been playing music kind of forever, but it wasn't really until I met Lalo and Noel that I was able to actually like form a band and like take songs that I had written and, turn them into something more than just like a bedroom and an acoustic guitar,
Massively. And what about for the rest of you? So, Noel, was it a college band or a school band or anything like that, or was it later on?
Yeah, it was a school band. I started off same thing, like in the percussion pit, playing classical pieces and stuff like that. And then for some reason, only the 8th graders were able to join jazz band. So finally, when I got into 8th grade, I joined the jazz band and started playing on a drum set. And then from there on, once I got the basics down, my dad was like, all right, you can play with me and your uncles, whatever. And I played in some cover bands for like church summer festivals and stuff with him. But I didn't really start playing with my peers until like late in high school and then early community college. I've had a few bands before Grumpster, and then I met these two fools, and the rest is history.
And was it the same for you, Lalo, or was it completely different?
Pretty late. I didn't play any music. I like got a drum pad in 5th grade and then just like touched it one day and I was like, I don't like this. And then I was way more into like video games and just kind of watching TV and just, I don't know, not really doing anything. And then around 8th grade, my mom bought me a guitar and I couldn't even play a chord. I just like kind of poked at strings and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I lost interest pretty fast because I wasn't good at it. And only really until I was like 21, I was like, after that concert, I was like, oh, I'm definitely just going to sit down and just like force myself to learn how to play. And then I just played every single day for hours and hours and hours. And then started the band. Yeah, I never played with like anyone else before Grumpster or anything like that.
See, that's nice. That's faithful. That's real love. You haven't been there with other people before and then come together like the others.
for each other's first.
Exactly. I never wrote a song with anybody else.
Incredible. That's what I like. The faithfulness of that is great. But I think Noel did start to touch base on that. So how was it that you three came together? Can you tell me about the first time you maybe all met? Was it in a bar to discuss ideas, or were you friends of other people, or how did you all come into each other's worlds? Donnie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so essentially I got hired at a Guitar Center where Lalo was working, and we like became friends, and we were talking about, you know, like bands that we both liked, and we had like a lot in common there. So we were like, hey, we should like show each other some demos that we had written. And we sat down to, you know, hash some things out, making little demos on GarageBand. And a few of the songs that we had were like, we had written essentially the same songs, just separate from each other. And then we came together. And once we realized that, we were like, oh my God, this is so weird, but we have to do it. And then Lalo and Noel had worked together at the same Guitar Center. I missed Noel by like 2 weeks when I got hired. And Lalo was like, oh, I know this guy. Like, we had talked about, you know, jamming together and like maybe starting a band. I'll see if he's available. And then he was. And now we're here.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Noel, when you first went in that room and started playing, did you just feel that it was just happening straight away? It wasn't anything like any teething problems? Did it just feel like the three of you just had that chemistry right from the off?
I would like to think so. These two would disagree. Maybe Lalo can give you his side of the story when it's his turn.
Is it completely different to yours?
Yeah. I was also, I mean, at the time I was active with my previous band, Triples Alley, and it's not too far off, but definitely a different drumming style from that. So, you know, maybe it took a second to switch gears, you know, into writing with these two and playing with these two. So, you know, I personally thought it was fine, and I knew that we were gonna figure it out. But yeah, maybe you can get more insight from Lalo on what they were thinking after our first little jam session.
Come on then, spill the beans, Lalo. How was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take long. It literally was maybe like 10 minutes of like, oh, is this gonna work? You know,
Yeah.
like I remember, you know, Noel kind of came in just doing like the pop punk beat, like the boop 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 boop, and I was like, I don't really want it to sound like this. I was like, I don't know if this is right. And I like, you know, at the time was a more shy person and didn't really want to like tell someone to like change what they're doing because I didn't like it. You know, I didn't know how to like approach it, but I knew that I really liked the way he played drums, so it was worth like saying something to see if we could actually make it work right instead of just like being like, sorry, you know, we'll try someone else. And I remember I kind of like made eye contact with Donnie, and we were both kind of like, I noticed we were still on the same page, so I was like, oh, hey, like, what if you played it just like a little more kind of melodic and like kind of Green Day-ish, you know? And then we retried that same exact song, and then it was like perfect. And I was like, I remember feeling like a huge, like, not a relief, but like a like moment of like excitement and like, oh, this is like exactly what I was like wanting, you know? And even then some, like a lot of like, it was, I think what we were playing, I think it was like Rich Kids.
I think it was Rich Kids.
Yeah, we were playing Rich Kids. And then in the like chorus, like Noel threw in this like heavy tom part, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. I didn't even like imagine that sound for that song, but it like worked really well. It was maybe an adjustment period of 30 minutes, but otherwise it was very fast, getting used to each other, like the way we play and stuff like that.
And then was it a case of you guys just getting out there as quickly as you could to get seen, to get some shows, maybe some support slots to try and win people over that have gone for the bigger bands? Is that how it kind of came about, like most bands, to build up that profile for yourself?
I would say so. We recorded our first EP with a friend just to have something out. Like, as Noel has said so many times, like he didn't even know all the songs all the way. It was like so fast, but we were like so ready, as you said, to just get out there. So for a while we were just like saying yes to every single show that was offered to us. There was like a month when we first started, I think we were playing like 3 or 4 shows like something like that, you know. So like anything we could get we would take, you know, and just doing that, I think has been really helpful.
And is it really hard to kind of get your head around the fact that it's gone so quick, and you know, it's the announcements from people like Lagwagon are now asking you to go on tour to celebrate their 30 years and stuff? Is it mind blowing? Is it like, how did we get from there to this? Is it I know when you're in the band, it's harder to kind of step back and analyze what's happened. But Donnie, it must be incredible to see the jump that it's gone from.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And it's really crazy when it hits kind of just like thinking and we're like, oh, we're out here on tour, but it's like we're sustaining ourselves. We're able to like be out here and do this. And, minus the pandemic, which I feel like those years don't really count because we couldn't do anything. Like we're only 3 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy to think about, like the first shows we ever played. And then 3 years later, we're out here essentially just like touring and, making albums and playing with bands that we all, like grew up on and respect. And it's definitely crazy. It hits once in a while. But when it does, you're like, oh my God, what is going on?
And Noel, during this whole pandemic and everybody having that time out, even though the band's only 3 years, obviously it was affected for you guys because for over 18 months, you couldn't get out there and play shows and do what you want to do. And the reason you're in Grumpster is to get out there and play music live. So did you use that time to basically come together and focus on recording Fever Dream? Is that how you used the time? Is that how it went?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There was nothing else for us to do. I wasn't working. I don't know if Lalo was working.
My work shut down for a while.
Yeah, I think Donnie was the only one who was working, and he's a barista, so the shifts were like morning shifts anyway. So we all pretty much had free schedules. So we figured we'll just write another record. We practiced a lot. We were writing a lot, and pretty much all of Fever Dream, I would say maybe 90% was pretty much wrote during quarantine.
I think honestly maybe 100.
Yeah. So that's you got it right. That's exactly it. We just hunkered down and wrote the record.
And Lalo, with that, a lot of bands I think use the pandemic to either reevaluate their priorities. So I've seen some bands that have just used that time to just not do anything because they've been doing the band so much, so full on that it was a nice time out. But it sounds like the opposite for you, and it worked out. So was this a time for you to really appreciate just how much you've got this incredible band? You've got these two other band members that are so close to you, and you would never ever now take a gig for granted. You just absolutely focus on purely doing what you love the most.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also, I was very grateful, but also very sad, because it was like, that's all we wanted to do is like go play a show, and when you can't, and you just like also the indefinite timeline of when are we going to be able to play again. People say like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You see articles online, oh, there's never going to be live music again. And it's just like that kind of stuff, but it was really great having these two, and just like, because we had just released Underwhelmed on November 2019, and we were getting ready for like tours and all this kind of stuff, and then boom, 2 months later everything's locked down. So we, instead of wanting to take a break, we were already geared up to keep moving and working a ton in 2022. So we were just like, well, what else are we going to do other than write a record? And I was just thankful that everyone was on the same page. And, it was never a question like, hey, do we want to do this or not? It was just like, let's just do it. Like, what else are you going to do, So it was great having these two. And it almost feels like it didn't even happen because we just kept working. It was, there was no break. I think the lockdowns happened and like we had practice 2 days later, it was like, it wasn't even a thought to stop.
So it was, as much as it was painful and obviously a lot of people were affected, I think it probably made the band for you and made the music come together and give you that time that you all needed to do this album the best you could. And the results are there. I've been listening to Fever Dream all week on the build up to this, and I'm not just saying it. It's one of my contenders for the album of the year. I think the energy behind it, the production, the sound, the rawness, but also the great produced sound as well. You've got a bit of everything, really comes together, and you all as a band must be absolutely thrilled and so proud of the work you've put in and the payoff, because Donnie, I'm sure it must have been a lot of sleepless nights working out these bass lines, the hooks, the vocals. It must be so good to see the results and the response it's had so far.
Yeah, it's really nice. And it's also nice because like we made the record in May of 2021. And so we have known how it sounds for well over a year, and so we like had this album and we know how it sounds and we know what it is, and just like sitting on it for a year being like, nobody knows who like Fever Dream era Grumpster is. Everybody just still knew us as Underwhelmed Grumpster. So now it's so awesome to have it out there and like to know that people are still finding it and listening to it and it exists.
And Noel, how does it feel now to actually finally get to play these songs? Because there was a moment when, and I'm only someone that goes to gigs, I didn't know if we'd ever see a gig again. I had tickets for Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and all these bands, and they kept getting delayed by a year, then another year, and then the festivals were getting put off. And I was thinking to myself, are we actually ever going to get to normality where we can see a band play genuinely live again? And there must have been that feeling for you when finally you could go off and play shows. It must have felt like it was never going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Because it just the lockdowns just kept getting longer and longer and pushed out further and further. And you try your best, hopeful, right? But when all you're getting is more bad news, you don't really know. But then when we finally were able to play our show, I think our first show back was the first show of the Anti-Flag tour. Yeah. And it's nice. Like it was very nice in two ways. One, obviously, because it had been more than a year since we'd played a show, but we were also able to play some of our newer material. So there was that added little excitement to it. It was like returning to something familiar, but it was also new because we were, playing some of those Fever Dream songs, before it was even out yet. So it was fresh but familiar at the same time, and it was just really fun, and it has been ever since.
And Lalo, for you, was there a moment when you kind of went out there, and did you ever feel like nervous to play again? Because you can get rusty, can't you, from time off, even though you're in a rehearsal room. To get that kind of passion on stage and momentum isn't easy. It's something that comes through experience. So for it all to be put on hold, did it feel quite challenging to rip that plaster off and go back on stage and really hope that you still got it as you remembered?
Yeah, I thought it would. Because I grew up with a lot of like stage fright. I would skip class if I had a presentation. I couldn't stand in front of 10 people and talk, so getting on stage for the first time with Grumpster, like, when we first started was, a challenge at times. But, every time you play a slightly bigger room, you're more comfortable, it feels better and better. And then I remember, the lockdown started, and then it went so long that we had played in front of everybody. I was like, ooh, do I have to like restart from, day one of getting used to crowds again? But, once we got there, I think it was in Grand Rapids. Show. Yeah. I got out there, I saw the crowd, I saw the stage, you felt that energy again of a live show. And, I think instead of nervousness, it was just excitement. I was just excited to like be up there again. I definitely made some mistakes here and there just because like you're doing it again, and it's like it took a slight adjustment, but it was definitely more excitement than nervousness, and it came back, right away. It felt like we had never stopped playing shows.
And Donnie, with the album now out there for the world to listen to, and it must have felt at one point like, are we ever going to get to play again? And are people going to get to hear these songs live? How does it kind of change your mindset each night you go on stage? Do you feel like you've got that extra pressure because maybe you're in a support slot and people aren't there to come and see your band? So do you have this kind of mission that maybe one person is at the front who had come for the main act will then hopefully leave with a t-shirt or an album of yours, or will go home that night and tell their friends about Grumpster? Do you try and win the crowds over when you're a support slot?
Yes, absolutely. I think like we definitely try to like play and deliver the same performance every night, no matter what. So like whether we're opening a show or we're, direct support, or we're headlining, or we're first of 10, we try to like be very like consistent in performance, in how we engage with the crowd and like the show that we put on, in hopes that if somebody came and saw us, they're going to be like, oh my god, that was crazy, I do want something, I do want to show people and listen to this band. And that definitely helps like with bringing people back as we do more and more support tours, which will eventually turn into headline tours and things like that. So it is definitely a mission of ours to deliver every time.
And Noel, obviously signing to, is it Pure Noise Records? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, how does that feel? Does it, to be amongst some incredible bands out there, to have this support from a label that, maybe I'm wrong, but they don't interfere and they let you do what you want to do and be the band that you are. It must feel like a really good time, especially with the album out and the buzz at the moment. It must feel like all that hard work and all that time during lockdown has paid off.
Yeah, for sure. It's been awesome working with Pure Noise. Even to get the offer from them was amazing. I personally had been into everything they've put out since I think they started in 2011-ish, maybe. And I've been a big fan of all of their stuff since then. So to be able to get to work with them and then learn that they are like super awesome has been great. They're very supportive of us and like what we want, and they want us to do things the way we want to, and they just kind of guide us along the way and give us support where we need it. They really just give us everything we need to play in front of the people that we want to, and get our music into the ears of the people that are going to like it. So it's been a very, very, very cool experience working with Pure Noise. And we just can't wait to keep hitting it with them.
And Lalo, for you, what's next with this band? I know, obviously, I mentioned and touched base on today's interview that you've got these support slots with Lagwagon coming up, which is incredible. Obviously, you want to get out there and do some more headline shows, but what's important to you now? Is it just basically getting out there as much as you can, doing as many shows as you can, and getting people out there to spend their time or hopefully their money on Fever Dream and just try and keep building the brand? Is that what's for you now?
Yeah, definitely. I think just, play as many tours as possible and play places where we've never played before is, I think, the key right now. And then revisit those markets as soon as possible and just kind of try to tour Fever Dream as much as we can, because we didn't really get an opportunity to tour the last album. So I definitely want to do it the right way. And then I think probably like in periods where we have a little bit of time off, start writing a little bit. I know me and Donnie already have some ideas for songs and have kind of started a tiny bit on some new stuff, while still trying to just like remain focused on this album and, tour it as much as possible, with just a little bit of writing in between.
And as much as we celebrate today how great the band's doing, the album's doing well, it's amazing you signed this deal. Has there been anything that's really challenging as a band? You seem like you're all on the same page. You're all incredible friends, very close. It must feel like a very tight unit and family. But are there ever times when there's a bad show or just something doesn't go right where it's just really tough and maybe you have to take a step back and just come back stronger?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, whenever you're in a close relationship with people, there will always be harder times than others, but I think because we have such a strong foundation, we're always able to kind of, communicate and push through and figure out the best solution or how to keep going forward, and I think you said it best, we're all on the same page. So when something like that does happen, it's also like a good reminder of like, okay, it's kind of mucked up right now, but we all have the same end goal. So let's figure it out, do whatever we need to do to get back to where we want to be and keep pushing forward, I think that's really the key for me, is that we're all on the same page and have the same goal. So I personally feel like anything that you could throw at us, we'll figure out to make it work, because I don't think any of us want to do anything else for the rest of our lives,
It's amazing. And Noel, do you believe that like there's still a huge kind of milestones that you want to achieve? So getting this album out there, getting a huge record deal, getting some support slots. Is there certain bands you'd love to be playing with? Is there certain festivals? We've talked today about early festivals that, we all went to. Do you want to get and see yourself go further up the bill? Is those are the kind of realistic goals that you set yourself as a band?
Yeah, absolutely. Hitting the bigger festivals is definitely on our list. Getting on better tours and, traveling more internationally. We definitely want to hit Europe, Japan. I think our mindset hasn't really changed since we started. Earlier Donnie said that we would take every show that we're offered, and I think for the most part, that's pretty much our mindset, just with a little bit more discretion, and strategy. But at the end of the day, all we want to do is play new places, play for new people, and just keep growing. Get in front of a crowd and show them what we do, what we're about.
Donnie, my final question for everyone that comes on the podcast. I've done over 200 episodes now, and I've had bands on before like Incubus and Everclear and all these different people like Alice in Chains and stuff. And I ask the same finishing question to anybody. Now, normally I do interviews with one-on-one, but as there's 3 of you today, it might be a case that you might have to play rock, paper, scissors or whatever we do to choose. But what I ask everyone that comes on is to choose the outro piece of music. So every single episode of the podcast, every guest gets to choose the song that's played at the end of our interview. So when it's all wrapped up, edited, the interview's all done, the final piece of music that's played is chosen by the guest. Now, there's 3 of you sat there right now, so it might end up being a scrap, a big fight until the winner gets to choose. But is there a song that means a hell of a lot to you, and it won't be from your own band, it can be somebody else, that you think would be a perfect outro song after we've had this talk today?
I personally have an idea of something, like lyrically at least.
What is it? This is the fight that breaks up the band.
Yeah, I break the band up today, and I'm known for now fucking it all up. So sorry, but what we can do is you could all put a selection, and I can choose, or who knows, you might all just agree on one. But let's hear one suggestion from you each, and then we can see what happens.
My thought is "Looking Good," Paramore.
Oh, I love that.
That is a hell of a song.
I was thinking "Back to Hell" is a good one.
That is a good one. But that Paramore song is about like, oh my God, we're in a band and we actually get to do this now. I never thought it would happen.
That's true.
Just like what's happening. I like that.
Yeah, that's a cool song. That's probably my favorite Paramore song.
I win.
Yeah.
Are we going with this then?
I think so.
That was a lot easier than I expected. I wanted to hear loads of fighting and arguing and everything else, but Paramore, I mean, one of my genuine favorite bands. I saw them live many times. I love the fact that no one knows what they're doing right now, and they're going to come back probably bigger, better, and no one knows what genre of music they're going to be doing this time round, and it's exciting. So I think to finish on Paramore was a great one today.
It was Looking Up, right?
Looking Up.
Yeah, you said Looking Good.
Oh yeah, Looking Up. Sorry, Looking Good's our song.
That's a bit of promotion at the end. Looking Good and Looking Up are both out now. I would recommend listening to both.
Use that Paramore song. I kind of copied the title for our song Looking Good. I was like, oh, that's a good Paramore song. I kind of like that lyric. Put it in our song.
There you go. I'll take that bit out in case they sue you for plagiarism, and then we have a huge court case, but it's all good. I want to thank all 3 of you for coming on the podcast today. It's genuinely a pleasure. I really appreciate your time. And as I said at the start, I really mean this because I choose the guests that come on the podcast, and Fever Dream is phenomenal. And I really can't wait for more people to discover it. And I really hope that you get to come over to the UK and play some shows, because I'd love to hear these songs live.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
I loved this.
It's been great.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the 3 members of the amazing band Grumpster. It's so good to talk to them. I really hope they get to come over to the UK sometime soon, or across Europe, and I'll be the first to go and see them. I absolutely adore their album and urge you all to go and check it out. If you've enjoyed today's episode, all that I ask you to do is to share this episode. If you go on markandme.com, there's a Facebook link, a Twitter link, and an Instagram link. If you go on there and hit that retweet button or share button, it really goes a long way and can introduce people to Mark and me that aren't aware of us. And honestly, it means a hell of a lot and can go so far. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please hit that share button. As always, I do have a Patreon page, and I'm going to use this time to promote it because it's what helps keeps the podcast going and funds and allows me to go out there and record more interviews for you guys at home. The only way this podcast can survive is by people helping me, and the link is on markandme.com. And if you're new to Patreon, it's basically a way of saying each and every month, here's a couple of pounds to say thanks for the interviews. And starting this month, there's going to be exclusive interviews just for you guys that support me on Patreon. So it's another bonus to join up. Not only that, you get a welcome pack which includes stickers and a badge and some amazing prizes thanks to my friends at Richer Sounds. Things are getting really crazy. It might only be the start of the year, but I want to try and top last year. I want more interviews, more in-depth interviews, a more wider range of guests, and so much more. So please keep on supporting me, and I will keep on delivering the goods. I'll be back in only a few days' time with another brand new episode. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.